sweet friends. Today we're going to do one of my favorite lessons that I do with my students, and it's all about a solar system. So we're going to practice all of the planets and getting them in the right order and then putting them together for a special collage. So if you're not sure about the order of the planets, we'll talk a little bit about that, but then we'll organize our paper so that we can end up with a beautiful solar system where the Earth is just a tiny part. Now, we are of course going to start with our mantra today, so get yourself ready so that we can begin and be strong for our art lesson today. Here we go. My mantra: I am positive, I am creative, I am mindful, I am amazing, I am an artist. Okay, so what you'll need for this project is mostly just a piece of white paper because we're going to make our planets on a white paper first. Hopefully a piece of black paper if you'd like to use it for the background, maybe some paint, some coloring tools, but again, for these lessons you can use any materials that are around you and just kind of edit or change how you use them to make it similar to the steps that I'm doing here too. So I'm going to begin by getting my planets prepared and then I'll show you how we can put them all together. So let's get started. So before we get started on our final copy, it's good to review the order of the planets so you know exactly how you're going to lay them out. So if you've never worked with the solar system before and you're kind of not sure how it starts, I like to use a little mnemonic device about how we remember the order of the planets. So something I was taught a long time ago was the sentence, "My very excellent mother just served us noodles." Now, there's been some debate about Pluto, obviously, but at this point Pluto is so small it's like the size of Earth's moon that it's not technically considered a planet in the solar system. So there's 8 planets total, 4 planets closer to the sun that are the rock planets, and 4 planets further from the sun that are the gas planets. So let's review that sentence again, and I'm just going to write down the beginning of each word. So, my very excellent mother just served, thanks Fuzz, us noodles. So let's review. After we have all of these beginning letters for our mnemonic device down, now we can fill in the planets so we can remember the order of how they appear in our solar system since they're always rotating around the sun. Remember, the sun is a star, not a planet. So the sun would be right here at the very beginning of my solar system. Then the closest planet is Mercury. The next one is Venus. Then followed by our planet, Earth. Next is Mars. This one is Jupiter. Then we have Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Now, when we have all of our planets in order here, anytime you're kind of confused about which planet comes first or how it works, you can always go back to that mnemonic device. Now, after I've had kind of a beginning start here, I always like to add the extra details that help me remember more things about our solar system. For example, the sizes. Not all of our planets are the same size. And something that was really helpful for me was when I actually learned about the belts, both the asteroid belt and the Kuiper belt. It helps to separate the planets a little bit. So right here, this in between these 4 kind of rockier planets and these 4 gassy planets is the asteroid belt. So the asteroid belt is kind of like a collection of rocks and ice that spins. Actually, technically it'd go this way because I'm spinning around the sun, but the asteroid belt would be there. Then the Kuiper belt is back here. So when I'm doing kind of the organizing of my planets, it can help yourself a little bit to label some of those things too. So let's get back to the sizes. When we talk about the sizes of all the planets, of course the sun is massive, but since it's not a planet, we're just going to leave that to the side and keep going down the line. So Mercury and Venus and Earth are pretty similarly sized. We're about here. Mercury's pretty small compared to the other ones, but these are similar sizes. Of course, the largest planet is Jupiter, so that one's gonna be real big when we draw it. Then a little bit smaller would be Saturn, and of course Saturn has rings of rocks and ice that rotate around it, and the final 2 would be Uranus and Neptune. So that can help you a little bit with the sizes when you're trying to plan out your circles at the very beginning of your solar system. Once we've reviewed the order of the planets and we know how our solar system works, now we're going to make a final copy paper. So I have some large black paper that I'll be using for the background, and then a longer sheet of white that I'll be using to make my planets. Of course, remember, you can use any materials that are available to you. So I'm going to start by just planning and use a Sharpie so you can see it really well, and I'm going to make the shapes and sizes for my planets. Remember, you can always use this as a little bit of a reference if you need to remember the order. So first I'm just going to start by sketching kind of half a sun because it's gonna come into my picture. And remember, I'll be cutting these out, so it's okay to label next to it if that helps you remember the order. Then up next I know is Mercury. So I'm gonna write a little M-E for Mercury at the beginning. Venus is a little bit bigger. That's a V. Earth is about the same size, E. Mars is a little bit smaller, M for R, and I'm gonna not get confused, so I'm gonna write it M-A. Then my asteroid belt will be here when I finish it on my final copy. Jupiter is big, so I'm gonna make Jupiter nice and big. And there's a storm on Jupiter, so I'm gonna make sure I get that red spiral when I start coloring it in. Saturn will be a little bit bigger as well, so that's my S. And then Uranus and Neptune are near the end, so U and N. So now I know I have all the sizes of my planets and I can begin to color. When I start to color, think about if you need to look up some information about how the planets are colored in, but you can kind of go off of what you know or use the internet as a reference. So now I've selected some oil pastels that kind of match the colors of the planets. The sun, of course, is a star, remember, so I'm gonna fill that in with these kind of brightly colored oil pastels and then go down the line and fill those all in. Up next, I'm going to work on the background so that I can let this dry a little bit as I'm cutting out my solar system planets. So remember, you can use any tools that you have, whether it be, doesn't have to be on black paper, you can just keep them on white and then paint the background, it's totally up to you. But I like the contrast of the black paper if it is available to you. You can use white oil pastel and color in some stars, or make some shooting stars in the background, or as a special little trick, I like to use an art toothbrush, which is obviously a toothbrush set aside just for art purposes, and actually splatter paint the stars onto the background. So I have a little bit of white paint here, and I'm just going to get my toothbrush full of white paint and then use my finger to just pull along the surface of the toothbrush like this. Pull, 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 and then kind of slide around the paper until I have a bunch of stars all over my paper like this. You can do some splatter paint if you have just a paintbrush, or of course you can do this little technique with a toothbrush if you like the way that that looks too. So I'm gonna finish splatter painting, and then I'm gonna set this to the side and start to cut out my planets so that I can lay those over the top. Remember to keep track of which planet is which, and probably just set them on your paper in order so that you don't need to worry about keeping track or getting confused about which planet goes where. Is time to glue down all of my planets, as well as adding the orbit lines around the sun. I can use a white colored pencil for that, or maybe a gel pen or an oil pastel if you were working on the black paper. Otherwise, you can do that with black or a different color if you'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these down first, and then I'm going to add all of my white details. I also like to label my planets and label the asteroid belt and add some other details so that when you look at this project, you can really learn something by, instead of just seeing a planet, actually identifying what it is as well. Alright friends, my solar system is out of this world. Couldn't help myself. But remember, you can use that mnemonic device to actually remember the order of the planets. My very excellent mother just served us noodles, resulting in the planet order of Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. I also added the moon here, and the moon goes around the Earth. There's lots of other planets that have moons, but we'll keep it pretty simple today. And then added the orbit lines, as well as the asteroid belt and the Kuiper belt. So you can get as complicated as you want, but this is an awesome connection to our solar system with a little bit of art creation. So at the end today, of course, we're going to do a little bit of mindful meditation to help us be focused and ready for the rest of the day. So for this one, to honor the fact that there are 8 planets, we're going to do an 8-second breathe in and then an 8-second release of our breath. So put one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly, and as always, remember keeping those shoulders relaxed and your belly or your diaphragm coming out. 8 seconds in, here we go. And out. Okay, was kind of hard for me to count and do it at the same time. But remembering that your breath can really relax you and get you ready to be super awesome for the rest of the day. Remember, you are amazing, you are strong, you are resilient, and I love you. We will see you next time.